All right, we have a little more time for this next forum here between Mike Palazzolo and George Brogdon, who are running for the open seat of Germantown Mayor. We haven't said that in a long time. And I think we should pause for a moment and just give Ms. Goldsworthy a round of applause for her service. And that did not cut into the candidate's time, so no worries there. The first question is going to go to you, Mr. Palazzolo, after the coin toss. And I need to start with a question about someone not running for office, but arguably has the most power in the city, City Administrator Patrick Lawton. By charter, Germantown has a weak mayor, strong city administrator form of government. The position pays a good salary. Yet Mr. Lawton has said he would likely resign if Mr. Brogdon is elected, and there are fears other directors at City Hall will follow. Well, Mr. Palazzolo, your critics say you're in Lawton's hip pocket and would do his bidding. Now, it's up to you as mayor who you'd recommend as city administrator. Who would you support in that position, the person who's there now, or would you look elsewhere?
Well, thank you, Richard. And that's a fair question. Hip pocket, I don't think so. You know, the distinct duty of the mayor of Germantown under this model, under our charter, it is a citizen servant model. In essence, it's a weak mayor. The role of the city manager or administrator is the CEO of basically what has become about a $114 million corporation that we know as the city of Germantown. I would pledge that this community is moving well and is well managed. We can look every day around our city and know that for a fact, and we can look at our AAA bond rating and many other things. Again, the distinct duties that the mayor has in the city are really two really special duties, and one is to make decisions about the city manager and the police chief. I think with any transition in leadership, after this election, I would pledge that I would have a conversation with both those individuals. I'd want to better understand what their personal goals are, their professional goals are, for the short term and for the long term. I know that as a community, you're proud to live in this city and you're proud that we are process driven. And I would pledge that with the city administrator, the police chief, you know, we're going to understand what their roles are, how we move forward, and whether it's versus retention or not, we'll have that conversation and a decision will be made at that time. Thank you, Richard.
Okay. Mr. Brogdon. Yes, make sure your microphone is on. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I appreciate being here, and thank you to Leadership Germantown for affording us this opportunity. I was surprised to see that. I have not come out and said anything about Mr. Lawton, and so when that came out, I was very surprised to see that. He did say he may resign. He didn't say that he would resign. It's a very high-paid position, as you said. It's probably $40,000 in what County Mayor Luttrell makes, $20,000 more than what Mayor Wharton makes and others. So it's a very good job. I think it's the highest paid position of any city manager in the state of Tennessee. So it's a good job. And the other part of that is, like Mr. Palazzolo, you have to look at it and see what's best for the city. The city has a vision, and we want to take that vision and move it forward. And if Mr. Lawton can do that, then I think he's the right person for the job. Same with the police chief. If they can look at the vision and see what the vision is for the city and move that forward, then I would support that wholly. I was a little surprised because as a member of Tennessee City Managers Association, we were always taught to uphold the ICMA Code of Ethics. And 10-7 says that we don't get involved in elections in any way. So I was very surprised to see that. And see a Palazzolo sign in his yard as well. Yeah, I was very surprised to see all of that. But having said that, I would look to work with him and move the city forward. Thank you.
So there have been some questions about the terms in which you left City Hall. You did give a distinguished service of how many? 24 years, if I'm not mistaken.
24 years.
24 years. Can you just clarify that for people?
Right. I think people got a little bit, the article in the paper wasn't real accurate. I want to make it very clear that I gave 55 days notice. I gave my resignation on June 6th, called all the aldermen, got some great messages from them, and I appreciate that. They gave me great support. 55 days notice. I will tell you that I always looked at running for this position. Thought the mayor may go 4 more years, but been a public servant 35 years, and I wanted the opportunity to continue to serve the people. So it was an opportunity to retire, spend some time with my family, but also the opportunity to run for office. And I'm excited, and it's been a great experience.
Okay, very good. I want to put that out there, Mr. Palazzolo, if there's anything you would like to say in that regard.
Regarding
his service and
well, I've enjoyed working with one of our city administrators, and we were part of a team for many years. And there is a difference between being a servant leader and being an employee, or being a public servant, in a sense of being retained as an administrator. I will say that I enjoyed my time working with my opponent, and that would conclude my remarks.
Okay, very good. Just want to make sure you had a chance to respond there. No mayoral candidate wants to say they're going to raise taxes, but Mr. Brogdon, you were administrator over the water division when rates went up 30%, and Mr. Palazzolo, you were an alderman when property tax rates shot up 44 cents to be one of the highest among the suburbs. Can you promise tonight there will be no more increases in fees or tax rates in your first term? And if your answer is yes, are you saying state and sales tax will be adequate to cover developmental projects, especially when it comes to schools? Mr. Palazzolo.
Well, thank you. Taxes are always a sensitive subject in any community. I think that our city obviously deserves, and our citizens demand premium services. When they feel like they are getting value for those services, they're willing to make that investment. Our city plans properly. In '94, we had a tax increase. We model our tax increases in 5-year planning cycles. The '94 increase lasted 10 years. In 2004, we had another tax increase in a 5-year model. That tax increase lasted 8 years. I was on the board at that particular time. The Great Recession hit, and we had obviously revenue shortfall in the sense that revenues were not coming in because our economy was not in strong shape. We passed a very small 6-cent tax increase to get us through the recession and not put undue pressure upon our citizenry. This tax increase we've had currently, again, is a 5-year model. We got the good news after the budget process that we have taken that to a 6th year. As your next mayor, I will go on record and do everything in my ability and my power and control with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to be able to try to stretch that model, 5-year model, to a 10-year model. Can't commit that that will happen, but that has been the track record that your city leadership has given you over time. So I pledge that we will try our best to provide those continued preferred services and keep your taxes at a stable rate. Thank you, Richard.
George, your response.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say we are a AAA bond-rated city. We have the wealthiest zip code in the state of Tennessee. I don't know if everybody knows that, but the 1st and the 7th wealthiest zip code in the state of Tennessee. So thus we have a AAA bond rating. Brentwood has 4 of the other 5, between 1 and 7. They have a AAA bond rating, both by Standard & Poor's and Moody's. Much is given, much is expected, and I think that we can continue to do that. The 44.5-cent tax increase was the highest tax increase we've had in the city of Germantown, in the history of the city of Germantown, and the 30% water rate increase. A lot of that had to do with we started a pilot 4 years ago where we moved $400,000 a year from the utility fund to the general fund. Now, it's not illegal. It's legal. You can do it. We're the only municipality around here that does it, but that also reduced the reserve fund and the water fund. So this year we have a 30% water rate increase. And so the unfortunate thing about that is your property taxes, you get to take off your income tax. You don't get to do the water rate fee. The 6th year, we look at that. And to be honest with you, the 6th year, we have no money in there for schools. And I think we were talking earlier, or at least the aldermen were, about money that's going to come for schools. And the same thing with, if you look at the capital, if we're not able to get any of the 3Gs back, then we're looking at a $30 million expenditure. That's without the land, $30 million to build an elementary school or a K through 8 or whatever. That's at the minimum. And so you're looking at some pretty hefty tax increase to be able to pay that, even if you do it in a 30-year bond. So I think I, like my opponent, would hope to get 10 years. But when you look at bond ratings and things like that, you never say never. So we would do everything possible to get to 10 years. Thank you.
Let me move to schools. Both of you have made that a center point of your campaign about keeping the 3 Gs and how to go about doing that. Mr. Brogdon, you specifically have said that you raised concerns about property values going down in zip code 38138. I did some checking on that from third quarter of 2013 to third quarter of 2014. So we're talking the quarter just before the municipal school district was formed to the last third quarter. The average price per square foot in 38138 has actually almost doubled the increase in 38139. So at least so far, it doesn't seem to be having much of an effect. And the number of sales are down in both zip codes, but down 3 times as much in 38139 as compared to 38138. So what is your concern about what will happen if these 3 Gs don't come back on board?
Well, I hear from realtors, and they say it's very difficult to move houses in that range. One thing that you have to look at the difference, Richard, is the houses that you have and the property values and what the sale value is. When you go out east and you're talking about houses that are $800,000, $900,000, those houses still aren't selling what they were selling for in 2008. We're about 2% from that at this point. And there are more affordable houses on the south side of the city, and I know some people have even moved that way because there are some opportunities for bargains. We're not growing at the rate of Collierville's growth rate. This is from the Memphis Business Journal. Collierville's growth rate in all 3 categories, unit sold, median prices, and average prices, outpaced its suburban neighbor and rivaled Germantown by healthy margins. So we're not growing at the rate we need to. People down there are very concerned about that because they don't have a neighborhood school. And it's very difficult. They were talking about the name. Well, how difficult is it when you come and you ask me, well, there's a house right down the street, so why don't we just, there's from the school. This is great. We'll be able to walk to school. Well, no, actually, you'll get to walk to the bus stop, and you'll get on the bus, and you'll go 3 or 4 miles, and you'll go to the school there. So I think it's very important for the future of Germantown. And to be honest with you, the South Side feels like it's been disenfranchised. I've walked thousands of homes, and I can't tell you the frustration and the anger from people that said, when I voted for the half-cent sales tax and I voted to have a Germantown Municipal School District, I thought we were going to be in it. I thought the school down the street was going to be in it. So from talking with realtors and looking at what others are doing and the growth rates and those types of things, I think that it is affecting the area, and certainly the perception is there.
Okay. Mr. Palazzolo.
Well, Richard, I need to add you to my strategic team. Thank you for that data. You seem to have proved the point that things are good from a real estate standpoint on 38138. I live on the south side of town, and I have spent probably about the last 8 months walking door to door in this city. I spent some time over in Germantown Station. We recently had a complete park renovation there. We improved the lake and the playground. I was amazed at how many families had moved into that area to take part in our new school district. Those people are excited. They live on the south side of town. Our citizens, especially our citizens that are parents with children, are very, very excited to have choice. They don't see it as a sacrifice to be able to go a short distance to a quality school like Farmington or Dogwood or Riverdale at the elementary level. If you walk neighborhoods, and maybe I have had a different experience than my opponent, when you walk them, anecdotally, I will tell you there are not very many for sale signs on the south side of town. It is a very affordable side of town as compared to the north side or the east side. It's a great place for starter families, for newlyweds and people starting families that want a real bargain, not a fixer-upper, but something that they can make more of a modern home. And yet they still have great school choices. I see nothing but positive things in the future as it relates to real estate. House values are up, and if anything, again, talking with realtors, they will tell you we don't have enough inventory in our city to meet capacity. We had something like 300 families that moved into Germantown, some of them just on a prayer that we were going to get our own school district. They moved in before we were able to acquire our 5 schools, some of them from South Cordova because they wanted to be at Riverdale. So we have growth, and the growth has come from having our own school district. Thank you, Richard.
Very good. So let's talk a little bit more about the 3Gs specifically. How much of an effort do you feel that you would need to make if you were mayor, that you are committed to making if you were elected, to bringing the 3Gs back? How would you fill those buildings with Germantown students, and how would you pay for what many believe is a more extensive renovations needed than even the 5 that we have now?
Well, I would be committed as your mayor to lead city government. I fully respect the role of our school board. Our school board weighs in on school decisions. When we were faced with an opportunity to have our own school district, we did not have a seated school board. We didn't have a chairman of the school board. We didn't have a superintendent. The city was the lead player in that negotiations and in the process. Now that we have a seated school board, we have our own district. You know, one of the things I've proposed in my platform has been to have semi-annual retreats, joint retreats with our school board and our BMA so that we can develop vision and mission. If we want to acquire or continue to have conversation about Germantown Elementary, Germantown Middle School, it'll be at the direction of our school board and our greater community. We both answer to the community at large, obviously, city government and school board. But again, the respect relies on what the authority our school board has. I don't think you want your school board weighing in on decisions like road paving, public safety allocation, or drainage projects. You certainly do not want to have your BMA weighing in on curriculum start times or bus routes. We need to have a healthy respect for each other, and if they want the commitment of the mayor's office to help out, I'm there for them. I'm nodding at Lisa Parker right now. Thank you, Richard.
Your turn.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say how excited I am that we have the Germantown Municipal School District. Back in our 2020 vision, that was even mentioned, Mary Ann, you probably remember that. You mentioned that. And so it's great. You know, a lot of people say we will never get it. But yet we did, didn't we? And there's people say, well, you will never get the 3Gs. But there's always a possibility. And yes, it does start with the school board. And they have to want those. But they'll need those because I've talked to them and talked to leadership of the school board and also the superintendent. And, you know, I was told they could use the elementary school and the middle school right now. And so our options are going to be continued to be in portables or build a $30 million school or try to get neighborhood schools or try to buy land down in the south area and then put a school there. So we have to look at that because we have capacity issues. We have the prospect of a $30 million bond. And so we have to look at those things and see how we can work together. I got to tell you that when I walked around and talked to everyone that, yeah, I took this as a passion because they said, do something, do something. Well, my opponent's right. It's not the sole responsibility of the mayor to do that. However, the mayor and board of aldermen provide all the funding for the school system. If they decide to do a $30 million bond, most of it's going to come from here. If they decide to purchase schools, most of it's going to come from here. So there has to be leadership. There has to be leadership to do that. And I'm going to provide that leadership and work with them. Not going to circumvent the school board by any way. I want to support them. However, I'll be there to work as hard as I can to make that happen. And having talked to people who are in the negotiations and those types of things, I think it can happen. It's about quality of life in Germantown, quality of life on the south side, and it's about leadership, and I'll be there for it. Thank you.
I want each of you to tackle smart growth first, and then we'll move on to economic development so that you don't overlap your answers here. But let's look at the smart growth plan. What changes you think might be necessary, if any at all? George?
Well, I do. Smart growth is a good thing. And so let me explain that. It's vertical annexation. Guys, we're landlocked. We can't continue to annex land. We can't do like Collierville. We can't go out there and build a ball and get more sales tax revenue and those kinds of things. So when this first came about and I was in all the charrettes, I said, this is kind of cool. It's kind of vertical annexation. Now, that happened in 2006. That's when we've developed the smart growth plan. And what's happened since then? Well, we had something happen in 2008 where most of our retirement funds went in half. Home builders quit building homes. Real estate people quit selling real estate. There were a lot of things that happened that we haven't recovered from yet. I mean, let's be honest. Life is a little different than what it was before then. So I think we need to go back and revisit smart growth. And here's some reasons why. What we're doing now is we're providing warrants to change everything that we're doing to smart growth. Let's use the Verizon building as an example. It's supposed to be on the road, which it is. It's supposed to be 2 stories, which it isn't. It looks like that. It got a warrant. That's fine. The Thornwood property down here by Neshoba North. And the smart growth said there will be a 20-foot buffer of vegetation where the neighborhood won't just see and hear everything that's going on over there. Well, what's the first thing we do? We do a warrant, and we take the 20-foot buffer out. Also, it's supposed to be retail on the bottom, condos above. Well, our market's not supporting that for the condominiums, and that's ownership, which we won't hear. What we're adding in the Thornwood development is 250 apartments. So what we need to do is go back, not against smart growth, but we need to revisit it, make sure we have fire overlay codes, which we don't have now. We need to go back, revisit smart growth, and make it apply to our current time. Thank you.
Real quick, since you have a little time left, Old Germantown, does he? Or am I wrong? I believe he had a little.
It said like 7 seconds.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm a shot clock guy. I'll watch that time. 5.2. We don't have to reset the clock
take
for
smart
a jump
growth
ball.
first.
Thank you, Richard. Smart growth, as Marianne Gibson alluded to earlier, this was a process that came out of 2020. It was a long and lengthy process. We identified that our city needed to make some changes, but not changes to the safety and serenity of our neighborhoods, but in the central business district. The process was lengthy. We had an outside firm help us with that. And again, we have no annexation area. So if we were to take some of the burden off of our residential property tax, then we're going to have to grow in our central business district. And we have expanded smart growth, or smart code now, as we refer to it, to our gateways. We had a Western Gateway that was a 2-year process. Everyone, stakeholders were involved. And what you have to understand with smart growth is that it is a fluid process. Occasionally there will be a need for warrants because of topography, drainage, other issues, density needs, traffic mitigation. So you make some changes as you go along. The Thornwood property is a great example of smart growth because you got literally in one area, you're going to have 3 generations of Germantown residents living. You'll have the villages of Germantown, a retirement community which is now expanding. You'll have high-end apartments, $1,250 to $1,850 price points. Across the street, the same developer is going with higher density homes, $400,000 to $600,000. Then you come south and you'll have retail, commercial, restaurants, hotel, and then you've got GPAC, and you've got the athletic club and the library. What a great way, a great place for 3 generations to move pedestrian-wise or driving-wise to enjoy our city. It's a great example of smart growth, and it's in the central business district. There will be a little bit of splash in the neighborhoods, but we have designed it to be in our business districts, not in the neighborhoods.
So moving on to the larger topic of economic development, I know smart growth certainly plays into this, folks, but do you feel like enough is being done to bring new retail in, restaurants, and the like?
Well, your restaurant question, we survey our citizens every couple of years, and public safety is always pretty important, but restaurants and dining and white tablecloths seem to be number 2. What a great community we live in when that's one of our needs. Economic development is very important to our city. We have close to $250 million of either approved, coming out of the ground, or on the short-term horizon in our city, and that's in our gateways and in the central business district. We are in great economic boom and growth right now. That was due to people like Alderman Markham, who brought forth an economic development plan and a strategy. We don't wait for the phone to ring anymore in Germantown. We're more business friendly. We're open for business, and we recruit. We have people talk about grocery stores. At one time, we didn't have enough. Now we have Whole Foods coming in. Now we have Sprouts. Now we have a regional flagship Kroger that will be unparalleled. Those things are happening. Case in point, when the Kroger eventually leaves Exeter, which they will, when their lease expires or when the store is closed or opened, we need to find something to move in there. I've had a lot of citizens tell me we need a sporting goods store in Germantown. Well, our new philosophy is we will have people at City Hall calling the top 5 or 6 retailers in the country and tell them about our household income, our AAA bond rating, our safe city, and at all the growth that's going on, and we will try to recruit someone like that in our city. Sporting goods may not be the answer, but that's what I hear a lot in our community. Economic development is very important, and it'll take some of the stress off of our tax base, increase our sales tax, which funds our education. And so those are very important things, and plus keep our neighborhood safe. Those things are important, and they can all be done collectively and together.
George?
Thank you very much. A lot of our boom right now, of course, is economically driven. We all know that. In 2008, money wasn't available after the boom, and now that money is available, we're getting some development. Richard, I do want to correct you a little bit on the Schnucks property. I believe that's only a third of that building is going to be used by Sprouts. So maybe you can move Channel 3 out there, and you can.
We had a bureau there. You see where that got us.
Yeah, that didn't get you anywhere. We do have some empty storefronts. Our Val Bridge Realty report of second quarter says that we have 15% vacancy in retail in Germantown. That's the highest in the county. I was told we had the lowest in the state, so I had a hard time kind of figuring how we have the lowest in the state if we have the highest vacancy rate in the county, and we're higher than Cordova. So we do need an economic plan. And as my colleague over here said a little bit earlier, I'm not necessarily in favor of having a long-distance economic development director or economic person. So I think that what we would like to do is hire someone that we would have the money available, since there was $150,000 being used for that. Hire someone who's familiar with this local area, categorize all of our empty storefronts. Yes, some of those are a little bit empty because the Kroger's about to move, but hey, just go around. Go out to Forest Hill, go to everywhere, and you'll see empty storefronts. And so categorize those, and then work with our chamber. Work with our chamber. That's what most communities do. Build a small business coalition, because a lot of our small businesses feel like we don't embrace them. And many times we see a small business move in, and 6 months later, woof, it's gone again, and it's empty. So categorize those, go out and recruit retail operations that can come in there, move in there, and make it successful. Hey, guys, for us to really be successful financially in the future, we do have to build that sales tax. So we've got to go out there. We've got to be aggressive. And that, if I'm elected mayor, that will be one of the main things that we'll be looking at.
So I think a lot of voters, especially those who are undecided, are wondering, okay, if I vote for this guy, how are things going to change from the current administration? What are some visions, some ideas? What will I notice in leadership strategy that's going to be different from Mayor Goldsworthy? How do you hope to set yourself apart and distinguish yourself as the new mayor of Germantown?
Well, I said the first time Mike and I spoke, and it was the first time I did speak at Poplar States, that whoever tries to fill the shoes of Mayor Goldsworthy is going to be a tough job. However, I think we have an opportunity to look, because we do have some challenges coming up in Germantown. You know, we are landlocked. We do have to build the sales tax to be able to do that. We've got to look at the schools. And, you know, I have championed that cause, and we'll continue to champion that cause and work with the superintendent to do that, because I think that's really important. I've worked with commissions all my life. I look out here, and there's dozens of people that I've worked with on commissions over the years, in my 24 years with Germantown, which have just been wonderful. And, you know, whether it was taking the Great Hall that had a revenue of $114,000 in 2010, and we had 3 different directors during that time, but the constant was I was liaison, and we were able to grow that to $358,000, 225% increase. It's a small example, but I think that I'll be a hands-on. I'm retired, and so I'll be here, and I'll be accessible to the residents. I even talked about having coffee with the mayor, open 6:30 to 9 on Friday mornings. On your way to work, stop by. We'll have a cup of coffee. We'll talk about things, be very accessible. So I don't know that you'll see a lot of leadership differences, but I see I'm very passionate about Germantown, been here, and so I will be here for the people. I'm very commission-driven. I love to look at solutions that we can come together, get everyone at the table, because if everyone's not at the table, then you don't have a sustainable solution. So I like to do that, and I look forward to doing that.
Mike, at the end of a 4-year Palazzolo term, how would you like people to look at what's distinguished you about your service?
Well, thank you, Richard. I would like to just take a second to just rebut one fact on the Great Hall that my opponent made. We are very proud that it's made some progress in revenue, but it still owes the city $1.5 million to the operating account, or the operating fund. So we got a long way to go there. I think the first thing that would be the order of business upon being mayor would be we have a 2020 plan. And we formed it back in '03, and even though it is only 2014, our city has moved pretty quickly, pretty fast. We have our own school district. We have all this economic growth. We've got smart growth, and it was alluded to by several people that maybe we need to revisit some of those principles in smart growth. I think the first order of business is bring this community together. We've had great leadership under Mayor Goldsworthy for 20 years. You know, we always strive for continuous improvement. It's not about change. It's about continuously improving. So we'll need to bring the citizens back together, develop a 2040 plan or whatever the citizens would like to call it, and we can develop what the vision of this city will be in the future. It can have tentacles that reach to education, to public safety, the smart growth, ambulance service, all those things that we currently look at right now in our city. And I think that's the first order of business. I have been a servant leader that has been very, very responsive and service-oriented. That will not change if I become mayor of this city, and I will fully engage the people of Germantown. That's what's made us great. You just look out over this audience. There are many people that serve. They serve in many capacities. We need to take advantage of that. Thank you, Richard.
You have each taken a very different approach to running your campaigns. What do you want voters to take from your campaign and what it says about how you'll run the office, and what will you do to heal a city from a fairly divisive campaign?
I'm leading off on that.
Well,
I tell you what, if you go visit my table outside, you will see there's no decorations. I'm very physically conservative. I will point out that all of my colleagues on the dais tonight have immaculately decorated desk out there. I will tell you this, that, you know, our campaign has been very much grassroots oriented. It has been in each one of the times that I have run for office. I like going on listening and learning tours of the city and going door to door. And that's what has always been a benefit to me, is being able to meet the people of Germantown. I think that differentiates to a certain extent. You know, we've always been very much, and sometimes we make some enemies doing this, but we've been very much your interest and not special interest. You know, we've always looked at the approach of limiting campaign contributions, trying to be as inclusive as possible with as many people, trying to make decisions that are good for 40,123 people and not groups of 25 or 40 or 50. And sometimes there's a part of leadership where you have to be very, very candid. I think one of the things, we had a question earlier about, you know, what was the things that you did was embarrassing or whatnot. One of the things I need to learn to do is be more benevolently candid opposed to just being candid. Those are some of the things that, you know, our community and my campaign have brought forward to this city, and I'm very proud of that. We built a platform based on thousands of conversations. It's 6 pages long. Someone told me it was too long, too verbose, but it's detailed. You can pick up a copy on my table. You can visit my website. But that's based on conversations over 8 months of going door to door, and I'm very proud of those efforts. Thank you.
Mr. Brogdon, your campaign, I just have to say, since we've been doing our debate here, I received an email from you on my personal family account.
Great.
From David Pickler, some school-related issue. I haven't read it yet.
That's a good one.
But it just came. So you're a very efficient campaigner.
Thank you. Yeah, you saw me coming over here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Your response.
Well, of all the campaigns I've run, this is one that I'm most proud of. I can tell you that right now, because this is the only campaign that I've ever run. When David Kustoff agreed to be my treasurer, he said, "You're just the opposite of every campaigner. They all know how to run a campaign, but truth be known, when they get to the office, they shut the door and they go," it's kind of like the candidate, Robert Redford, "What do I do now?" Well, my office has been beside the mayor for 13 years. I've been in government for 35 years, so I'll know what to do and hit the ground running. I didn't have a clue about running a campaign. My opponent's been running a campaign 2 years and been walking the streets for over 6 months. Because of where I had to retire, I had 2 months from announcement to early voting. And so I looked around, and, you know, it's not uncommon to have people managing your campaign now. Over half the people sitting up here have people managing their campaigns. That's not an unusual thing now. In fact, it's a very good thing, and that's how you do things professionally and how you get emails. I'm serious about this campaign. I'm serious about the campaign, and I wanted to do it right. I just didn't want to do a haphazard campaign, make my own signs and kind of things. I am incredibly proud of the donors that I have. These are the movers and shakers that support GPAC. These are the people that give $400,000 to the church to be refurbished. These are the people who are leaders in our communities, who are lead realtors in our communities. Look at my donor list. I'm incredibly proud of that. No, I did not self-impose a $100 limit. It'd be like the Grizzlies playing L.A. and saying, we're not taking three-pointers. No, I'm going to play by the rules, and I have played by the rules. All my polls have been by the rules. If you look on my sign, it says paid for by the committee to elect George Brogdon, which is supposed to be done, but not all signs have that. So proud of our campaign. We've run it right, and we've run it good.
Well, you opened that door, so I'm going to ask you to
Right.
address specifically what you mean by that, and the robocalls have also taken some heat that perhaps you weren't following things by the letter.
Well, good, because, well, first of all, if you look at my opponent's sign, there is no disclaimer, and I was told that that's a legal law, that you have to do that. It's, I don't understand campaigning, but I can read the rules and understand the laws, and I can tell you the people in my campaign told me from the beginning, if we don't go by the letter of the law, then we're not working in your campaign. And I have gone by the letter of the law. With the polls, too, all of our polls were done by a professional company. Again, and I'm not trying to blame the CA on everything, but they credited me with all the polls. There was more than one poll going on, but no one took the time to see what the other polls were. Ours were identified at the very beginning by the company that's running the polls. We've run 2 polls, and a professional company that's right here in Memphis. Secondly, at the end, they put a phone number where someone could call. So we're doing it correctly. I did not have 2 years to get all the information. I wanted to be sure that we knew the pulse of the citizens of Germantown. So we went out there and we found out exactly what they were wanting and what they were looking for in leadership. And so we wanted to do that and provide it. Our signs are legal. All of our polls have been legal. And when people say that they're not, then they're not looking at the law. They're not listening to our poll. Again, I don't know who did the other polls, but we only did one. Polls are very expensive, so they're difficult to do.
All right, Mike.
Thank you.
I will tell you that we have conducted a poll as well. The pharmacist at Costco over at Hacks Cross in Winchester, every time he fills a Germantown prescription, asks who he's voting for. And so
How are we doing?
and that one didn't cost any money, Richard. I will allude to campaign signs. It's my understanding that that's a federal mandate on yard signs. And other than that, I'll just close with saying on this particular question, I'm very proud of the campaign that we've run. It's been one that we've run. This is the 5th time I've run for office, and it's always been very grassroots. My donor's your next door neighbor. He gives $100 or less. We probably have maybe 8 or 10 people that have given more. So it's just, it's as one of my treasurers once told me many years ago, we attract Joe Lunchbucket, and that's who we want to support us. But we'll support everyone. If they can give money or not, we will support them in this city, and we will serve them. Thank you, Richard.
All right, you guys, we've come to closing remarks time. Let me look at my notes here. Who goes first? George, you get to go first with your closing remarks. 90 seconds, please.
Thank you. I am passionate about Germantown. I want everyone to know that. My wife and I, Denise and I'm my wife, right there, yeah, have been married 32 years. We chose 22 years ago to raise our family in Germantown. Our 3 boys graduated from Houston High School. They were involved in the arts there. They were involved in sports. I've had the privilege to work in Germantown for 24 years. Great privilege. I'm looking at dozens of people out here that I've worked with on commissions, and they will tell you 2 things about George Brogdon. 1, he'll give 110%. 2, he will find solutions to challenges. We do have challenges in the city. We have a great city, but we do have some opportunities and challenges as we move forwards. The 3 Gs. We have overcrowded schools. We don't have neighborhood schools. And we have disenfranchised the southern part of the city. We did have the largest tax increase in the city of Germantown, and we had a water rate increase as well. If we're not competitive with surrounding communities on our tax rate, neither our schools or our city will be successful. Smart growth. We need to revisit smart growth. Do we really want 7 to 10-story buildings in backyards, and do we really want to put a highway through Old Germantown? We have an aging community. We have to be sure that we do everything possible to make our community safe. And finally, I am a believer, you didn't ask a question, in term limits. If I'm elected as your mayor, I would not serve over 2 terms. I hope everyone is looking for a fresh vision, because that's what I'm going to bring to Germantown, and I hope that you'll support George Brogdon for mayor. Thank you very much.
All right, very good. And Mike, you finish things up for us.
Thank you, Richard. In closing, thank you for allowing me to serve as your alderman for the last 10 years and 10 previous years before that on boards and commissions. It's truly been an honor and a privilege. I'm really excited about the prospects in the future of Germantown. I look over this audience and I see why life is good in Germantown. We have engaged and passionate residents who care about their governing, they care about their quality of government and their quality of life. As a community, we are thriving. We're the 10th best suburb in the United States, the 10th safest suburb in the United States, the 3rd happiest suburb in the United States. We have a quarter century as a dual-rated, AAA bond-rated city. Quarter century, not just a few years. We have one of the top libraries in the state. We have our own locally controlled schools. I repeat, our own very locally owned schools. We have expanded shopping and dining and living. We have our own ambulance service that is breaking even. We have safe neighborhoods that are thriving. Everyone in this room can take pride in this, and I think that I had a little something to do with it along the way. Not all of it, by any means. In my 10 years of leadership, I have a third of that time spent during stable times, a third during the Great Recession, and the balance during a great boom. If you like your community, I would ask you to like Mike Palazzolo for mayor. Thank you.
All right, that's it.